Welcome to Trapline today. Always brought to you by thetrappermag.com. If you're looking for a great magazine, make sure you go to thetrappermag.com and get yourself a subscription. We've got a great guest today, a good friend of mine, I've known for a long time, Bill Duke from Duke Traps. How are you this morning, buddy?
Here. It feels like we just saw each other a few days ago, right?
I believe we did, but actually we've seen a lot of each other. I mean, we don't see each other for 6 or 7 months or 5 months or whatever it is, and then we see each other, I don't know, 3 times in a matter of like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
good thing though. We just got
So
done with the FTA.
yeah, that was a fun convention, and I can't give enough good words for what they did up there. It was fantastic.
Yeah, they Mike Mazur and Jason, the president, they did a really nice job. I thought it was run pretty good, and as far as trapping conventions at this point in time, I felt that there was a pretty decent, steady flow of people that were there and interested in the outdoors and trapping in general.
Oh, I thought so too. It just goes back to the message we all have to get behind that trapping can be a beneficial outdoor activity for people of a wide spectrum. If you're involved, whatever it is, deer hunting, turkey hunting, anything like that, trapping supplements that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always good to see you. We were actually set up right beside each other and had a good time. Uh, Before we get into some of the nuances of today's market or whatever, I just kind of wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of. I don't think we talk about history enough, and I kind of wanted you to give a little history of possibly your father Ta, who's a big part of everything as well, and kind of give us a little synopsis of how Duke Trap started and where you're at and moving forward into the future.
Yeah, sure. Glad to do that. So our family goes way back in trapping and outdoor activity. My grandfather grew up along one of the tributary rivers, the Tom Bigby River, hunted and trapped basically to keep his family fed. And a lot of people do they trace their backgrounds back to very humble beginnings like that. And so my grandparents, they started dealing in pecans and fur back in the 30s, which was just a sideline item that they dealt in, something they could buy and sell that maybe made a little income for the family. And of course, back in the 70s, that's when the fur market really was in a boom time. My father and grandparents, they bought fur, and it grew to be a really big operation where we had buying trucks running across Mississippi, Alabama, and parts of Florida, just buying raw fur from trappers and hunters. It was a time that I vaguely remember in the late 70s, but through the mid 80s, I grew up in that, and it left a real visual on how things were during the boom times.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and you know the getting into where you're at now with the Pro Series and all the different things that you're bringing to the market. Uh, Talk a little bit about how the equipment obviously is much more animal friendly and oriented, different things of that nature. Uh, when did you see that process start to change? Was that the BMPs, or give us a little background on what has driven you to put out the Pro Series and all the different things that actually not only are a great device for trappers, but in turn they're actually a lot more friendly to the animals in the quarry that we chase.
Yeah, well, this is a story we've all got to tell that the equipment today we have is better than anything we've had in the past century. Some real game changers, starting with the DP coon trap, being the number one selling trap in the nation. And it all started just by some experimentation. There were people that were trying different ideas that were simple but a little complex, and then one idea just took over, and that the result was a DP. And then you get into the to the humane aspect of a smooth cast jaw trap. Now, people have tried cast jaw models before. There were let's see, I'm trying to think way back, but I mean, people did develop some cast jaws, but when the models started getting developed for the smooth jaw, that investment casting process that is a very smooth jaw, I think that became the next game changer.
Yeah. Well, pretty much my whole arsenal, and I know a lot of other people's arsenals, is the 550, and then it moves differently. You know, if you're a Western trapper, you might be wanting the 650 or things of that nature. Now you've got the 450 out, where they're really just different versions of the same trap. It doesn't matter whether it's the 450, the 550, the 650. Every one of those traps is going to work for pretty much any situation you have out there when you're chasing coyotes, bobcats. You know, every one of those traps is going to hold them depending on your situation where you're at in the country.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's been the model since we came out with the 550, was to develop different sizes that would be complementary to those target species. And we've really been encouraged by this. The feedback we get from people, whether they're live market trappers to just regular trappers that like having a trap ready to go out of the box
Yeah.
that doesn't do damage to the animal. If you catch a non-target or you catch a dog and you want to release it, you can safely do that with that trap. And you know, there's rarely been a trap that has so many positives and really no negatives.
Well, and you know that's a very good point too. If you do end up catching a non-target, or you do end up, you know, having something that you do want to let go, like I don't kill gray fox. Some people make fun of me about that. It is what it is. I kind of say it's my spirit animal, but I just think gray fox are just, they're ornery, they're aggressive. I really enjoy them. There's not as many around either. There's certain pockets in the country where they're just becoming more and more, you know, or less and less in the area. And you know, every time I catch a gray fox, I can let them go, and there's absolutely no pad damage, no foot damage, and I've showed that process probably 3 or 4 times over the course of time, and that's with a 550. If you even take it down to a 450, you're gonna have literally, you know, not even an impression a lot of times, especially if you're using that offset. And you know, you do make those. You know, well, obviously, you're making the 450 and the full jaw and the offset, but those offsets, to me, just from a purely, you know, physics standpoint, with a gap, it's going to be less intrusive on any animal that you do need to let go, and that's a positive to the trap itself.
Oh yeah. And you take a trap like a 450, if people are in an area where they've got mixed population, you've got gray fox, you got red fox, you got coyotes, you can really take that trap out, and it's a one trap for all species.
Well, it is, and I actually, you brought them out. I believe they came out June or July of 24 last year.
Yep.
They were the first trap that I put in the ground. I took a trip to New York and went out to specifically try and get a couple coyotes in them, and we put 3 or 4 coyotes in those 450s, and they were full pad catches. I like it in a lot of different situations because it's a little smaller trap and allows you to bed it better.
Yeah, that's another key feature, and throughout that whole East Coast, where you do have those mixed populations of red fox and coyotes, mostly red fox, that trap has really surpassed our expectations. We're real happy with it.
Yeah, I can see why. I actually like it, and I'm going to probably, pretty much every time I'm setting in Pennsylvania, that's the trap I'm going to be using due to gray fox and red fox, and it's going to hold every coyote and cat that we touch. Moving forward on your traps, you just came out with a Super Mag, the 330 last year. I was fortunate enough to be able to use that up in, no, actually, it was your prototype. Use that up
Yep.
in the Adirondacks and caught a beaver in that. I wanted to give you a little chance to talk about that, the specifications of it, or the different nuances within that trap versus your others, and then you're also going to be moving down the line on some others, and wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of just touch on that and why they're better, and maybe why you're bringing those to market as well.
Right, yeah, sure. Be glad to do that. So the closed jaw Magnum style body traps have been a growing trend for a number of years. And we've seen that progress where you've just got trappers that they like the ability to catch an animal and it be very, very quickly dispatched. And also it comes with features that make it a much safer trap than some of the standard body traps. Even though it is a very tight jaw closure, we put spring safeties on it that are tensioned. So if you turn that trap upside down, the spring safeties are going to stay put. And anytime we come up with something new, we're going to add some extra features to it to make it just a little bit better. And I think in our model, our pricing model, it's going to be so much more competitively priced than competitors' products. But so the Super Mag 330, we introduced that back in January, and we're really encouraged by the adoption of a lot of customers that had used other brands, and they were extremely happy with the performance they got on these, and they saved money in the process. So we collected some of their feedback, and it was just overwhelming that we were onto something that we needed to expand on. So we started working on the 220 Super Mag and developed tooling, had a few revisions, and those are in production right now. So we're really happy to be able to say that that's going to be available sometime in September.
Yeah, and actually, I'll be doing kind of an expose on that. You gave me one of the prototypes when we were at the FTA, and we're going to show the nuances of that trap, and we'll be, obviously putting a clip online shortly with that. You know, giving a look at the industry in general, do you do you think that moving forward you're going to be bringing even more and more different traps to the market? Is that in your plans to try and continue that process where you're trying to make things better, and also fit into the mold of where we're at today, where we need to educate and show that these traps are very efficient and all the different things that go with that?
Oh, absolutely. That's what we're trying to do is come up with new things over time that make the trapper's life better, get better results. And the progression from the super mags goes to smaller sizes. So right after the 220 comes out, we'll start work on the 160 and a 120. And if those continue like that, we should have those available by the end of the year. So yeah, it's a continuous process. I just think we have to do that because trappers expect it.
Well, exactly, and the more efficient equipment you have, the better you're gonna do when you're out in the field as well. That just goes hand in hand, and your whole product line uh, has really, over the last decade, has really, you've taken it, for lack of a better phrase, you've taken it to the next level with everything that you're doing as far as the efficiency, the quality. There's very seldom that I have to do anything to any one of those 450s, 550s, or 650s. Maybe a little pan tension here and there, but man, out of the box, they are ready to go.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge difference. You've only got a limited amount of time when you're in the field, and the last thing you want to do is spend a lot of time reworking a trap after you've had something go wrong. So the better we can be at making that trap ready to go with as limited amount of extra work as possible, I think it benefits the trappers exponentially.
Absolutely. If I think you know the answer to this question. I think you do. I've said it probably 1,000 times. If I was to just pick one trap to use the rest of my life, what my favorite trap is, what is that?
I'd say it's going to be the Pro Series 550.
The 550 definitely is the trap that's going to go in the ground. And then if you get into water situations, you really can't beat your 1.5 double jaw as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that is that is one of those things where when you set that trap, you know if an animal gets in that, he's going to be there the next morning. And that's a positive too when you're out there in the field. We're not out there. I think the big misconception people, whether it's an anti or whether it's somebody that doesn't know about trapping and they've only heard that side, they think we're heathens. They think we're out there just looking. They think we set traps and don't go check them. It just boggles my mind that somebody would think that we would set a trap, put all that work into it, and then just leave it there and not go check it. It just defies all logic. But that 1.5 double jaw for anybody that's doing water, raccoons, mink, muskrat, anything of that nature. That's a fantastic trap too, and I don't think it really gets as much play as it probably should for the quality of that as a device in somebody's arsenal.
Right, right. I think it comes with prices of fur. If there's a high muskrat price, people would really use that trap a lot more. Just these days, people use it a little bit less because there's just not the drive to do that. But it's a super trap, and we sell a decent number of them every year.
Yeah. Uh, Moving forward, I do have more questions. I do want to tell a little bit of the story, though. I want people to hear this. I want them to hear, how you supported a kid who was obviously green behind the ears, maybe even had gangrene as young as I was. But for anybody out there that maybe, I know there's people that have heard this story, but I played baseball for 10 years. I was living in Orlando, Florida, and I went to the NRA convention, and I was around all those like-minded people, and I kind of decided that day after talking to the Outdoor Channel, I was like, I'd like to do a TV show on trapping, and they're like, yeah, we don't have anything on trapping. That would be a good fit. And, I obviously didn't really understand the whole process yet. I was just like, well, we're going to do that tomorrow. Well, it took, I think, about 7 or 8 years to actually accomplish that back in 2010. But in 2003, I left there and I called my dad. And I said, Dad, I'm coming back to Pennsylvania. And he's like, oh, yeah, what are you coming up for? I said, no, I'm moving back. He goes, well, what are you going to do for work? I said, well, I'm going to do outdoor videos. And he goes, well, how the hell are you going to make money doing outdoor videos? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And over the next couple months, I did some research. You were, one of the people that I contacted. And, you and your father were so giving of your time. And, the crux of the story is I literally called you with my idea to do outdoor videos. I wanted to do this trapping set where we just teach people trapping and hopefully they catch the fire and it burns in their soul. And you're like, well, send me an email with a proposal. And I sent you a proposal and you literally got back to me immediately and you sent me a check, which actually was the driving force for me to get my first camera and also travel that fall to film Brad Harris, Mike Gursky, myself, my father, Jim Spencer. And really, without you taking a chance on, you know, some kid just calling you out of the blue, I guess we were basically the same age, but we're still kids. We're in our early 30s. You think you know what you're doing, but you sure as hell don't. But if it wasn't for you and your father uh, taking a chance on somebody just with an idea moving forward, I don't know if we'd be here having this conversation. And I want to thank you and your family for the friendship and giving me that opportunity because I don't know if we really would be here having this conversation.
Well, Alan, the feeling is mutual on all this. I'm happy that you did that, and I think looking back on it, it's pretty easy to see that the vision was where it needed to be. Trapping was underexposed, and there were people that really wanted to learn about trapping, and there was not a lot out there. And I think you tapped into it early on when VHS was taking off, and then DVDs took off, and there were a lot of things that were going on. People are interested in trapping, they just didn't have that resource, and you delivered what they were looking for.
Yeah, and it kind of, at that time, it was kind of, we didn't know that, or I sure didn't know, and I don't think you did either. I don't think anybody really knew. Like, when we first, I've been in this game, and, you've been a part of it with me. We've been in this game a long time. We've been in this game since, like, we didn't have DVDs. We were putting those videos out on VHS.
Oh
And
yeah.
then we transferred everything to DVD, and now the DVD's obsolete. So, you're talking like we've been through like three generations of technology on actual digital media. Actually, probably five, six, eight, 10. But as far as physical media, we went through the generations to where now you'd be hard pressed to even find half the people probably even have a DVD player. But
Yeah, that's
it's
so
it's
true. But the trapping videos, the ones that were on DVD and VHS, there weren't a lot out there at the time. The ones that were out there were really, really dated, and
yeah.
you came along at the right time. And then, of course, you went into network too. And I mean, I remember talking with Toxie Hayes one day, and he was saying, your show on The Pursuit was the number one
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
just a long time because there was nothing like that. People
Yep.
were very interested in learning about trapping, and you brought it to them.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time for probably over a year, and then I had a conversation with Dennis Presley, who's actually the nephew of Elvis Presley, which is interesting. He's my rep with the Pursuit Channel, and he's like, yeah, he's like, what are you guys planning on doing? Da da da. And he's like, you guys are the number one show, and I'm like, really? And I just, because I had been in TV, going pushing towards a decade at that time, struggling with the hunting show. We were doing the all outdoors show. We ran the Sportsman's Channel. We ran Pursuit. We ran them both at the same time. And I think that's a big misconception out there. You see somebody like Paul Anzac, or the show alone, or all those different things. A lot of those people, they get paid to be on those shows. A big misconception is it doesn't matter if you're some peon like me or Ted Nugent or Lee and Tiffany. We all pay for our airtime on those bigger networks. We literally sign a contract and we have to pay them to run our program. It's kind of a 180 from most network TV, and I think people think that we're making all this money, and it's a exposure thing to where if we can break even and just get the exposure from it, that's what we've always tried to do. And you've been a tremendous supporter. There's no way I could have been able to do this on my own. You've taken a lot of great leaps of faith in me to get this done, and you know, I'm really proud of what we've done. We've got farther to go, but you've been a big part of that. Also, you've given me that opportunity.
Well, Alan, thank you for that. But I tell you, we all learn from each other. I've learned heaps from you too, and so we just have to try to learn from those experiences and just go forward. I'm happy what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm happy to continue the process. Leading to the next question, continuing the process. Let's talk a little bit and let's get a little more in depth on the Duke Dog Proof.
Okay, yeah.
The Dog Proof, the way I look at the industry, and tell me if you agree with me. I know we've had some conversation on this, but I truly feel that the Duke Dog Proof is the just the one all when it comes to being able to promote what we do to the homeowner. Obviously, we've went down that path of the homeowner, the rancher, the farmer, the hunter. But the dog proof, it this day and age is the tool that everybody can understand the simplicity of it, the value of it, the absolute 100% you know ability to go out and show somebody success. It's kind of almost like when I was growing up. You take the 110 body gripper and you go out and you set it in a channel and you catch a muskrat. You got coon tracks. You set the dog proof. He's going to be there the next morning. It allows us, and I wanted to, just kind of give you an open-ended question about that and how you see that as a tool for furthering trapping and hopefully bringing more people into it.
Right. Well, I firmly believe the dog proof trap is the greatest innovation in trapping in the past 100 years. And it caught on so quickly. Throughout the history of the trapping business, there have been other innovations. The 110 body trap invented by Conibear was a huge innovation, but it never took off that fast. And what we saw with the dog proof trap was that it took off massively because you had a very strong raccoon price, and trappers started using the predecessor models that were developed, and they were having huge success with this. Uh, they didn't have to make a bed. They could pre-bait the trap while they were at home and just take the trap out, loop it around a tree or a fence post, and then head on to the next set. They could put out a massive number of traps and then just come back the next day and pick up their harvest.
Yeah.
And I just think about how that took off. The timing was perfect. And then after the pro fur trappers really determined that that was such a good trap, I think it gravitated into the general outdoor industry where a lot of your close friends recognize, gosh, this is an incredibly easy trap to reduce the raccoon population. I mean, for years, people had seen their turkey population decimated. They'd seen their deer feeders being just ransacked every night by raccoons coming through, and then they start setting those traps out, and the problem is taken care of.
Yeah.
And and even when they become successful with that, the general outdoor person that picks up a dog proof trap, that becomes a gateway. That's a gateway trap to them getting into other things like coyote trapping. I mean, it basically is bringing people into trapping and making them trappers where previously they had no trapping experience at all. I think it's one of the best things that's ever happened.
Yeah, you just made a really good point. It is a gateway trap, because a lot of my customer base is not what you would consider trappers. Like, we're reaching people, we're showing them how they can help keep the raccoons off their deer feed. We're showing them how they can, keep the raccoons from destroying their turkey nests. We're showing them a different aspect of trapping that we're showing them the value of it. And with that, there's been numerous times that I've gotten emails. Hey, we're just pounding these raccoons. I want to get into coyotes. What do I need? And we set them up with the 550s. We set them up with our mountain man bait. We set them up with the stakes and all the different things that go into that, where they would have never been doing that. But they've literally been out there. They've caught the raccoons and the possums and whatever. They've gotten eaten up with it to where they're just like, I want to catch some coyotes now. And it leads into those. So that's an absolute 100% spot on point. It is definitely a gateway item into other aspects of the trapping industry.
It is. And then we can also talk about what that does to preserve trapping as an outdoor activity. I can remember years and years ago, back in the early 80s, when trapping was its own thing and it was a tightly guarded secret that if you were trapping, you did not tell people your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
you kept that to yourself because you were afraid somebody was going to come in and catch all your animals out. And now what we've got is such an inclusive group. Anybody can learn about trapping and they can become a successful trapper by utilizing what's available on YouTube, by utilizing going to trapping conventions and taking trapping classes from people. I know you've done some stuff like that with people
Yep.
before. And when you create allies in the trap, bring them into the trapping community, you'd be surprised what kind of support we have as a group from the general outdoor population. When somebody targets trapping and says, oh no, we're not going to allow trapping, you've got a massive army of outdoor people that are going to step in and say, we're not going to stand for that. We're going to make sure trapping remains viable. We need this tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's a really good point. I mean, you live in West Point and you do your business out of West Point. I mean, look at what has kind of transpired around there. My buddy Cuz, he's probably been in 3 or 4 times, even without me, to grab some stuff. And Toxie comes in and buys traps. And you don't get many people in the outdoor industry much bigger than they are. And if, and they weren't in it. They really truly weren't trappers, but now they're trappers. And actually, Cuz wears that badge with pride. He's like, oh, I'm a trapper now, So
Isn't that a great
it
message? I
really
mean,
is.
it's a fantastic message that a man that built his whole career around turkey hunting and just growing that business there at Mossy Oak, they're trappers now.
Yeah.
They're a part of this group and they recognize the benefits. And I'm just really thrilled that they spend time getting that message out to the general outdoor.
Yeah, because they're actually reaching eyeballs that we would never reach. They're
So
they're
true.
reaching people in the outdoor community that if they didn't know them and they were flipping through the TV or YouTube or whatever, and they see somebody, you know, they'll see maybe the title is dog proof raccoon trapping or whatever. They'd be thumbing right by that. But since now they've done a good job of adding that into their mix per se. Uh, we get those people to stop and maybe be a little more interested, and then the next thing you know what, I'm going to try that. Let me get a half a dozen of these, and then they get out there, and then it turns into the whole gateway again, like you said. It's just a cycle that we all can do, and we can probably all do a better job as stewards in that capacity moving forward as well.
No, I think so too. I think so too. You think about from the turkey hunter perspective, you have a certain number of tools you can use, and then there's certain things you can't use if it's not your own land. But anybody that's got a lease, they can take traps out and they can be successful with those. And that's one of
Absolutely.
the that's one of the factors you can control.
Exactly. Yeah, fantastic. I got a couple questions here for you. Not putting you
Yeah.
on the spot, but just kind of your opinion when it comes to some of the things that we as trappers we kind of touched on a little, but what we deal with on a daily basis. What do you personally say if, like, trapping conventions and stuff? We're not going to run into this, but I'm sure if somebody finds out you're Bill Duke and well, you sell traps, what do you say to the folks who maybe don't understand or maybe look down on the trapping lifestyle to kind of, in that moment, that 30 seconds, that minute, that maybe 15 seconds, what do you say, and maybe what could you give to somebody watching this a good point or two on how you would handle that situation?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you come into contact with people who are misinformed just because they're not in the industry. They don't understand what tools we use today, and they think that all trapping is cruel. And there are a lot of cruel things that happen. Most of the time, it's animals getting eaten alive
Mm-hmm.
and overpopulation and sickness that happens. And I just think man has an integral part in managing wildlife populations. I mean, every state regulates trapping, they regulate the animal harvest. It's not like people are going out here trying to catch and kill every single animal they find. This is a resource we all want to keep. We want to keep this resource for generations to come. And trappers are a very important part of that. I just think of all the horror stories I've heard about animals getting sick with distemper. And if a population becomes so overpopulated, you're going to have that. Why not manage that population and reduce the likelihood that that's going to happen? Because that's a horrible way for an animal to go.
Absolutely. I say it all the time. With human expansion and suburbs, it's basically the United States is suburbia now, pretty much everywhere, unless you're in the middle of Montana. Or even Montana's becoming that now. So
Yeah.
it's our job, just like you said, it's our job to help control those populations because distemper goes in a week later, they're dead. The whole population. Rabies is a terrible death. Mange, you see these animals with mange. It's uh it's a process that doesn't need to happen with controlled trapping, and like you said, it's all regulated. It's not like we're out there just doing what we want. There's seasons. They're set, for biological reasons, environmental reasons, and ultimately, that's that's a good answer to hopefully change somebody or at least educate them. You maybe not change their minds. I think, you got 10% on the right, you got 10% on the left, and then you got 80% in the middle. And you get that 80%, a little more information on the conservation side of things. If it does come up on a bill or a referendum, maybe they'll vote in your favor because no, I met that guy. This is about conservation.
Yep, that's the story we all have to keep telling because there's enough misinformation out there that people are listening to that is just totally wrong.
Yep, exactly. Uh, I guess, I mean, this isn't. We're definitely not done yet, but as time moves forward, and you and your dad are just a your father, actually, let's give him a little plug. He got inducted into the National Trappers Hall of Fame, which was well deserved this year. I'm sure he was pretty happy about that, and well deserved as well.
Yeah, we kept it under wraps. I knew that it was coming, but I didn't want to give him any hints that it was coming. But
That's
but
good.
it's a very humbling experience. My dad, gosh, he's just been involved in the business his whole life and enjoys what he does. The enthusiasm he has, going to work every day,
Yep.
doing what he does, is it's better than anybody I've ever known. And I'm so thrilled that I've had this opportunity to grow up under somebody that is so enthusiastic and it's in his heart every day.
Yeah, he's beating you to work today. I've got you sitting at home. He's probably where's Bill? But moving forward, what do you when it's all said and done? I don't know if we all need to leave tracks so we're remembered and all that. But what do you take the most pride in being part of this industry, and moving forward? What do you want to be, the Duke brand or the Duke name to be thought of and remembered, as time goes on?
Well, I think in the history of trapping in this country, um, when we trace our roots all the way back to the foundation of this country, a lot of cities that are big cities today were founded as fur trading centers,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still living a portion of that life today. Um, I mean, I think we should all be proud that we're a part of that legacy that was started years and years ago, back in the 16, 1700s, when this country was in its early stages, and we're still doing it today. I mean, there are always challenges, and we have to adapt to the new ways. But the fact that we're still here says that we're survivors.
Yeah,
That's what we are.
survivors. That's a great term for a lot of the people. We are definitely survivors, and you know, we all have our own, I guess, our own way of how we experience the modern day mountain man approach that takes us, basically in our own minds back to that time, and we can romanticize about walking up through that valley and beaver everywhere and all those different things, and that's why I mean I caught my first muskrat at 7. I've had that fever ever since.
Yeah, and those places you're trapping today, just sitting there and reflecting on what did this land look like 200 and 300 years ago when people were out here trapping at that time? How did it look? And what were
Exactly.
their thoughts and what were their experiences? It's good to reflect back on that.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, I appreciate you being here today, man. It's always a pleasure for me. Um, we're moving forward. We're gonna continue that path to try and educate. We're gonna keep the proverbial foot on the pedal and just try and get as much information to people. And I can't thank you enough. Like I said earlier, I can't thank you enough for giving me your time today and being a part of this. But I can't thank you enough for the support that you've shown me all these years as well.
Hey, Alan, I really appreciate what you're doing to get the message out because this makes all the difference.
It does. Well, I hope you have a great day, my friend.
You too, Alan. Thanks so much for the time.
All right, you too.
Yep.
Well, that's the end of the trap line today. We hope you enjoyed it. If you're looking for a great trapping magazine, obviously, thetrappermag.com. They'll send it to you in the mail every month. As always, we hope to see you out on the line.